All right, good morning. We're going to go ahead and call
Good
to order
morning.
our April meeting for our Left 2 board, call to order. And before we start with our business, we'd like to take a moment of silence and remember our fallen police and firefighters across this great country. But specifically this morning, I'd like to make mention of the passing of Deputy DeRosier, who was killed in the line of duty on April 13, 2019. And today is his memorial service. And Representative Granneman, our co-chair, is not here today. He's participating in that memorial service, as many of our officers are. So I'd like you to lift up our brothers and sisters and their time of need right now as well. Let's take a moment of silence. All right, thank you. All right, we on phone right now. We have Ade and I believe AJ are on phone. We do not have a quorum this morning. We've had a number of people that are not available. Representative Berquist doing his work on the Hill, as well as Senator Holy doing his work. And so I'm not sure, Senator Warnick, I'm not sure, I haven't heard from her. So not expected to be on the phone. So this morning, we've got just a couple things to take care of. I'll turn it over to Executive Director Nelson for a few updates.
Okay, the first part of the legislative update has to do with the two bills that were endorsed by the Left 2 board. The eligibility gap for law enforcement officers and firefighters, and the spousal consent requirement that was jointly endorsed by the Select Committee on Pension Policy. Both of those bills have passed and been signed by the governor. So both of those bills are done. Next up, we had some bills of interest that we've been tracking on the website and updating you on throughout session. There was a follow-up to last year's PTSD bill that would allow some of the records regarding PTSD claims in particular to be have privacy, confidentiality associated with them. That bill has passed and been signed. There was also a bill passed that will be signed today, expanding the number of occupational diseases that are considered or presumed to be duty related for purposes of workers' compensation. And finally, another bill that we've been tracking, this bill has passed out of the House and Senate, but it hasn't been signed by the governor yet. No, has not been passed out of the Senate yet. Passed out of the House. Senate hasn't taken action. I apologize. And that has to do with the benefit improvement account. Under this bill, all future state obligations to the benefit improvement account would be done away with. And there would be a one-time transfer of $300 million from Left 2 into the Left 2 benefit improvement account. There's been pro and con testimony on that bill from Left 2 stakeholders, and so we will continue to track that one closely and keep it updated on the website. And then, are there any questions about that bill or any of the other bills before I move on to the administrative update?
Steve, can you touch on... Go ahead, Ade. I'll let you go first.
Yeah. Yes, this is a day I think I forwarded to, I've been talking back and forth with Steve, and thank you for all your help and talk. And I've copied the chair on these two yesterday. I think since we've endorsed other bills, I just think, even though I'm totally 100% in support of benefit improvement for our members, but I do think that the state is taking the money that belongs to three groups to fulfill the state obligation. And down the road, I think the board has done an excellent job in making sure we have adequate reserve and to make sure our funding ratio is excellent. Now, with reduction of this money, again, the challenge will be thrown to the board down the road to up its funding or its reserve. And I just think even if we cannot stop this, I think we need to make our displeasure known. More so again, if we've been able to endorse certain bills, we should be able to speak out to these that we support the benefit improvement, but raking the left two fund to do this, I just think we need to seriously look, study the impact of this, what that will have, what the effect will be down the road, and for us to voice our opinion. Personally, as an accountant, I just don't think this is, I don't think this is good for the fund. So I just want to state that.
All right, Ade, this is Dennis. Thank you, and thank you for CCing me on that email last night. I appreciate reading through the information. I know that Steve had provided a response as well as Tor, so I have an idea of kind of where you're coming from. I did have, I would say, in coordination kind of with some of your thoughts, maybe just looking at some things that we have talked about as a group, and I was going to ask Steve, maybe you can touch on a couple of things that have been raised related to 2144. And some of the work that needs to be done or that has already been done or it's in its work. Maybe you can touch on some of those things.
Ade's, and in testimony from the Association of Cities, they've raised a number of legal questions. Some of those are state law questions which would have to be answered in court. Some of them have to do with federal law, and so if the bill passes, I think the plan would be to reach out to Ice Miller and get their input on some of those federal legal questions. And then with respect to the actuarial or accounting impacts, there will be a number of items on the proposed work plan for the next interim, many of which the board discussed last year, and so we'll be bringing those to you at the next meeting to get going on the interim. That includes things like what are the appropriate reserves, what kind of funding ratio corridors are appropriate for the plan. There'll be the annual actuarial valuation, of course, and then there will also be updates from the actuary's office on new risk measures proposed from the Society of Actuaries, sort of other ways of measuring plan risk besides just the funded ratio, and OSA will be doing an update, at least one update on that as well. We'll go into the details of the proposed interim work plan at your next meeting, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have this time.
Ade, this is Dennis.
Yes. Yes.
So in your response, I think, just want to make sure that you kind of understand, you got a pretty good idea of where we're going for May, some of the things that we're going to be working on, then also in trying to find the response to your questions, correct? You got that?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I don't want you to think we're ignoring by any means, so. All right. AJ, are you still on? Anybody got any questions, anything else?
I'm good.
Okay, seeing no other questions. You got anything else, Steve?
One other issue that we're tracking related to the legislature in the House budget, but not in the Senate budget, was a budget proviso that would require the Left 2 board to study issues related to allowing tribal law enforcement officers to join Left 2. So we'll be looking for that one. The budget proviso included funding for it. So anyway, that's another one that we'll be tracking for potential interim work effects. That's it for legislative updates, unless there are any questions.
And then I have, go ahead.
Okay. As far as the administrative updates, there's a couple of things I want to give you a heads up right off the bat. We got notice yesterday, Monday, that the State Investment Board is going to be expanding. They've got a number of additional FTEs that they expect to have approved in this budget and in the next budget. And so their long-term plan to occupy this entire building is looking more like a short-term plan. As part of that, our ongoing leases with them have included a one-year notice provision on when they would need us to move out, and we got that one-year notice this week. So part of our interim work plan now will be identifying where we will move to and all of the associated issues with that. I'll have more detail or be able to answer more questions about that at the May meeting.
Can you just tell me who accepted that letter? That was
Well, it was more
I'm just
verbal
teasing.
notice,
I'm just-
but yeah,
just-
okay.
Don't answer the door.
They've taken great care of us the
Yeah.
entire time that we've been here, and they wanted to make sure that they understood they were not kicking us out. They're going to work with us to make sure that transition is smooth on our end. The relationship's been great from beginning to current, and they don't want it to end on a sour note. So this has been anticipated. I didn't quite expect it this week, but it's not something that was completely out of the blue either. I did kind of have a naive hope that we would somehow, one way or another, end up staying here forever. That, maybe they would do their expansion in Seattle or
Just
something
forget
like
about
that.
us.
Yeah, but no, the time has come. A number of outreach activities also that I want to brief you about. Ryan was at the State Council of Firefighters Educational Seminar earlier this month. We've got people from the team. Tim, I think at this time, is planned to go to Local 27 up in Seattle for a benefits financial planning seminar that they're having. They've had that multiple times. Snohomish County is also having one, and Tim will be there. And then it's possible before the May meeting that there will be one up in the SeaTac area as well, I think, that we will have somebody at. Uncertain about that one. WACOPS will have their spring membership meeting before our next board meeting. We will have somebody there. I've been asked to give a legislative update at that meeting, so I'll be there for sure. And then they've got a spring expo the next week for the sheriffs and police chiefs, and Tammy will have a table there. That's it at the moment for outreach activities that we know about before the May meeting. But there's a number of other administrative items that I did want to mention briefly. The board did receive a public records request from Phil Talmadge regarding communications to Ice Miller, Robert Klausner, and Joseph Fischnaller. We've communicated with all the board members, and we're going through the staff. All three of those gentlemen are, or Ice Miller is a law firm. Robert Klausner and Joseph Fischnaller are also attorneys. So not exactly sure what but anyway, we're in the process of responding to those requests. There have been some new legal activities about, or legal, how do I put this? Treatment of requests for privileged legal communications isn't quite the same as it was 4 years ago. You might have to provide some stuff, but then redact it as opposed to just blanket saying the whole document's privileged, for instance. But we're working on that response, and Tor's been very helpful. A couple of board term appointments. All the legislative terms end at the end of December. Representative Berquist has been reappointed, but we haven't heard yet who from the Senate. The Senate has not made their appointment yet. And then there's some openings for employer member or employer firefighter and law enforcement officer that'll end in June. We've been working with getting those, communicating with members whose terms are coming up. But also, we've been informed by the governor's office that Dwight Dively, the county representative, that his seat is now considered vacant. So we'll be trying to coordinate with counties as well to see what they're planning on doing as far as a appointment for that spot. That is it for the admin update. And that concludes those portions. I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the administrative items. I know I covered quite a few there, more than I normally do. Are there any questions about those? Now, the next meeting, just as a reminder, has been moved up from its normal monthly time. So the next meeting is Wednesday, May 15th. And that is expected again to be sort of the first meeting of the interim, where we'll give you a preview of all the benefit, actuarial, and administrative topics that are tentatively on the work plan. We won't be expecting you to formally adopt a work plan at that time. We sort of give you all the stuff that's out there to let you prioritize what you want to work for, and then the adoption of the work plans typically at June. Let's see. Any questions about any of that? Ade or AJ, any questions?
I'm good. Thank you.
No questions, Steve.
All right, so thank you. I had two comments. One, I wanted to personally thank Ryan for taking the time to be at our state council event. We had almost 300 members in attendance over there in Spokane. Great presentations, and I just appreciate the relationship and the work, so thank you very much. And then just a side note, just a follow-up on that House Bill 2144. If it indeed takes action and actually gets passed and it's before it gets moved to the Senate floor and they vote in favor of it, and it gets put upon us to figure out what we're going to do, I just want to make sure everybody understands the idea, the thought is to be as inclusive as possible. And when I say inclusive, we have a responsibility as a left board. We have state representatives, we have county representatives, we have our police and fire, our employers. And so what we do, and we've done very well as a group, as to be, again, as inclusive as possible, trying to hear all the input, takes ideas, suggestions, but be mindful. We've done a good job as a board to find consensus and find the things that we can agree among, and then move those things forward. For the things that we don't agree on, we usually try to find ways we can work through the best we possibly can. But as I've told other people, I'm committed to making this process, if it comes onto us, the best possible process that we can do and be mindful of those that we represent. Very similar to what Ade was saying. We have a responsibility to basically three stakeholders when it comes to the Left 2 board. We need to be responsible to all three of those and be mindful of all our members as we move forward. So that's my commitment. So. Ade, AJ, any questions before we close it up?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
good, Dennis.
All right. Anything else? All right. Say we
Yeah.
are adjourned then. All right. Thank you.